Good. I call the meeting to order. Before we get started, the DSU acknowledges that Dalhousie University and the Dalhousie Student Union Building are located on traditional, unceded, and unsurrendered Mi'kmaq territory. The Dalhousie Student Union seeks to honor the relational treaty process in its programming, events, meetings, and interactions. We'll begin with roll call. Amina sent her regrets. Masume sent her regrets. Chantal.
Here.
Corey.
Here.
Alex.
Here.
Jeremy sent his regrets. Katie George Jim.
Here.
Ali sent her regrets. Nikunj. Liam sent his regrets. Katie Douglas sent her regrets. Cameron.
Present.
Ashley.
Here.
Arizu.
Here.
Kate Remold.
Here.
Yazin. Here. Reese McDonald sent his regrets. Chelsea.
Here.
Alexandra Erb. Sent her regrets. Shaz. Katie McClellan.
Here.
There are 11 of us. That is quorum. Let's move on to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a mover and seconder to adopt the agenda as circulated? Chantel and someone, Katie McClellan. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
With the reports, since a lot of them weren't circulated, is it alright, or did you receive any of the reports?
I received Corey's report, and that was it in terms of reports.
Okay. Well, perhaps when we come to that, I guess it'll just work itself out. So
Yeah. Are there any amendments? Seeing none, is there any opposition to accepting the agenda as circulated? Seeing none, let's take it on unanimous consent. Let's move on to minutes. Do I have a mover and seconder to accept the minutes as circulated from the February 21st council meeting, Arizu and Corey? Were there any amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, is there any opposition to accepting the minutes of the February 21st council? That's taken on unanimous consent. Communications received. Lots. I've had regrets from Ali, Masuma, Jeremy, Liam, Katie Douglas, Alexandra, Nita, Reese, and Amina. Appointments for the Accessibility Fund Committee is next on the agenda. We have an opening for a council member on the Accessibility Fund Committee. Alex, do you want to describe briefly what the Accessibility Fund Committee does?
Yeah. So the Accessibility Fund Committee, what that's going to look like from now on is basically in the next 2 to 3, hopefully the next 2 to 3 weeks, hopefully no longer than that, we will be reviewing the applications that we received for the winter semester of the accessibility bursaries, and then deciding who gets funding and how much funding and all those fun things. I really want to stress that if you're going to apply or put yourself forward to be on this committee, that really need you to be available in the next 3 weeks for 2-hour periods at a time during the work week. So if you're really busy right now, probably not a great committee for you.
Thank you, Alex. Do I have any nominations for council member on the Accessibility Fund Committee? Councilors can self-nominate if they would like. For the second time, any councilors on the Accessibility Fund Committee? For the third and final time, any nominations for council member on the Accessibility Fund Committee? Seeing none, I'll close nominations, and that'll come up at the next meeting of council. We have no presentations tonight. Committee reports. Is there a representative from the Elections Committee here? I don't think so. Okay. Then we'll move along to board caucus. Amina isn't here. Katie George Jim, did you want to talk about what the board caucus has been up to?
Yeah, so with the caucus, after the board meeting in February, we've kind of just been following up with a lot of board members and seeing, so the vote that the motion that we brought forward, half of it got approved and half of it didn't. So the half that got approved was that the Finance and Audit and Investment Committee would review, not even review. They would take it to their committee to look into hiring an external third-party finance investigation into what divestment could mean for the university. So that's like a great first step to have back on the table. Not necessarily all what we wanted, but we were able to do that part. And the second part that wasn't approved was delegating to the committees of the board to look into how divestment would specifically affect their committee and the communities within them. Anyway, so we had a really full debate and discussion about what that was at the board level. I think we're moving in an incredible direction with the relationships that we're building, and students really see themselves in what we're talking about. So I also really appreciate that, and like appreciate all the student work that's gone into getting to this point. And kind of going forward, Jeremy, Amin, and I all sit on different committees, and so we haven't met in the past couple of weeks. We just keep in contact, but I think that's just an update from our last time. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie. Does anybody have any questions for Katie? We'll move along then to Senate caucus. Masuma isn't here. We'll move along to Society Review then. Alex.
We hit 365 societies!
Ooh, that's good.
I'm excited. We're all excited. And coolest thing was that the 365th society was by caucus, which I think is cool and symbolic and great. And also, interesting thing, the society committee was presented with like a notification that a society had broken society policy and a few other policies. So we have brought forward a motion to council advising that council discipline the society, so that'll come up later today. And also we at our last meeting, we reviewed our society space allocation process and came up with a few things we want to edit for this time around. And open to feedback if folks have any, or if your society had space and like has any feedback on that. Yeah, and hopefully that'll be going up on the DSU website by the end of this month. Sorry. That's about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Katie, I think has a question.
Yeah, just specifically for Alex, I've had a couple of students ask me about trying to apply for space in the Society Hub. So do you think you can just briefly explain where to go and
currently, so the application isn't up yet, but what will happen is once it's like edited and ready to go, it'll just be like a web form on the DSU website.
Okay.
For folks to fill out like why they should have space, and then the review committee will review all that and decide based on that. One thing that we decided to change, which I think will be beneficial for everyone, is there was this year an office that had 6 societies that were supposed to share it, and what ended up happening is that none of them used it because it was just like I don't know why, but none of them used it. So we've decided to pare that down to 3 because that seemed to work well for the 2 offices that had 3 societies in them. So changing that.
Katie.
Follow-up question, will the societies that didn't utilize the space this year, would that be considered into their application for next year?
We as a committee have talked about that, and we're trying to figure it out because it wasn't anywhere stated previously, but we're adding that into the application. So like, did you have space this year? Did you use it? If not, why? And that'll go into the decision. So.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Society Review Committee? Corey.
Since Jeremy's not here, what was the first society that you ratified this year?
That's a good question. I don't know. I can't find that answer. It's just give me. Can I answer that in a minute?
It depends on how long.
Well, literally, okay, wait, actually I can do it in 30 seconds, or less than that. Okay, I can't do it in less than that, I don't know. It's fine.
Any other questions for Society Review Committee? Alright, then we will move along to Grants and Sponsorship Committee. Chantel.
Last time we met was 2 weeks ago. We won't be meeting again until next week probably, so there will be a little gap in that. We awarded several sponsorships to societies holding like cultural and just fun galas and events as it is gala season. Just to be noted, we awarded both a grant and sponsorship to the Spanish Society this year, considering like they had a bit of a financial hiccup and they've been taking a lot of like steps to try and reconcile that.
Sorry, just a moment. Oh, hello, Amina?
Hi.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. But yeah, this was for their large event La Velada that was happened last Friday and was well attended. And it's just one of the that's about that.
Thanks, Chantal. Does anybody have any questions for the Grants and Sponsorship Committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. The first item of business is Ashley Farrell's motion about DAS's Rick Mehta motion. Ashley moved this motion. I circulated documents related to it after the last meeting and then again with your package this week. Do I have a second for this motion? Kate George?
Yes.
Thank you. So we'll start debate on this motion, 4-minute speaking times for folks. And I'll try and get everybody to speak at least once before I let somebody speak twice. Ashley, where you moved the motion, you have the opportunity to speak first if you would like.
So we're a little, can I start now?
Pardon me?
Can I start now?
Yes.
Okay, I have a little write-up, so if I'm just reading off, I apologize. So I apologize for the multiple emails over this motion over the past couple weeks. The motion was originally emailed to counselors individually in an attempt to get support before DAS publicized it. Because of this, we assumed our best bet was to email counselors individually, but after speaking with Amina, we decided to bring it forward at council since it is an ongoing issue that students are facing, and we're hoping to get the DSU's support as a whole, despite the fact that DAS has already approved the motion. Second of all, I'm not an expert on Rick Mehta politics. I do, however, support the motion wholeheartedly. I encourage counselors and the gallery, if you have questions, to Google Rick Mehta or to ask Callista, one of our DAS counselors who has come here today, to explain the issue in further detail. If you do a quick Google search, you'll learn that Rick Mehta has used both his social media platforms and his classes to boast against the decolonization of academia and the acknowledgement of residential school impacts. He's also spoke out saying that gender is not fluid and those who believe in climate change are part of a cult. He's also noted on social media and in person that those who speak against him must seek professional help, and he called them subhuman and crazy. The goal of DAS's motion was to acknowledge that these statements, among others, were not appropriate coming from a psychology professor, and that they have grave impacts on his students and any students who believe that a professor is someone to look up to. While obviously there's no Acadia students at university, we thought the DSU should endorse DAS's motion because of the faulty process for filing complaints at Acadia. Basically, if a student wishes to file a complaint against a prof, their name is automatically attached to that complaint. And so DAS assumed that students would not come forward because they were scared that the person marking them would mark them according to their complaint. Accordingly, DAS has talked to its constituents. We've also reached out to the Acadia Student Union, the Acadia Equity and Accessibility Office, and Acadia students who have posted about him. To sum up, I bring this motion forward on behalf of the DAS, the Arts and Social Science Society. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask Callista or me, and I highly encourage that we vote in favor of this.
Thank you, Ashley. Katie, George, Shin, as the second, you have the opportunity to speak now if you would like.
Yeah, I would just like to say how incredibly proud I am to see DAS coming forward with this type of statement, as well as the research and as well as just the attention that's bringing forward. As we are a part of a small community of Atlantic universities, and I think solidarity statements, and I think being involved in just not our own community, but as well as understanding and being supportive of others. And this is a cry for support, honestly, from the students there. And I think with our influence and with our similar mandates within the union to promote indigeneity and to promote the understanding of what decolonization and colonization means in Canada. And I think it is incredibly inappropriate that a professor as well as an academic could use that type of power and influence to create just such a negative atmosphere and environment for folks that already feel marginalized and are extremely like being even more so marginalized because of these type of outrageous statements. And I think there needs to be accountability, and I think as a union we can offer that, and that's in the form of solidarity. So I'm incredibly happy to see this come forward. So sorry I didn't reply to your message. It's just been like, even just like seeing this come forward, it's just, yeah, thank you so much to the art students that have put in the work for this, and I really appreciate this coming to council, so thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Does anybody else want to speak to this motion? Either for or against, questions, anything like that? Our council is ready for the question on this. All right, all in favor of the DSU endorsing DAS's recommended motion, please raise your hand or otherwise indicate.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Up next, the Survivor Support Center mission, vision, mandate, and taglines. We have Shannon here from the Survivor Support Center. I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce these. Again, these were circulated with the package. Looks like this. But Shannon, if you want to take 5 minutes to sort of briefly go over what these are, you can have that opportunity now.
Thank you. And where's the best place to?
Up here would be what here would be best. Yeah. No, if you want to stand.
So yes, my name is Shannon Pringle, and I'm the manager of the Survivor Support Center that started here in September. And I wanted to bring forth a vision, mission, values, mandate, and taglines for the center. So we have something to work with so that it can grow in the next coming year, in the next few years, and be a very prominent body on campus that is going to bring about a cultural change. Which is a cultural change to consent culture, and not what we have going on in the university now. So in preparing for this, I consulted mission, vision statements, value statements, and mandates from Ryerson, from York University, from Avalon, and all the materials that were put in the platform that went into the levy, and my own job description, and also all the information in the background of the phone line. And this is what I've put forward. So the vision statements are usually short. That's why it's only a few lines. The mission is to, the mission statement comes, and then the vision is what we hope to achieve. So I'm gonna start with the mission first. So our mission is to provide anonymous, confidential, non-judgmental, trauma-informed support to survivors of sexualized violence, and to create positive social change at Dalhousie by addressing issues of sexualized violence and rape culture through innovative education strategies and advocacy. And when we achieve this mission, we will have our vision, which is lives and relationships free from sexualized violence. I've put together some values, and again, I have drawn these from a number of other organizations, including what was given to me as well. We believe the survivors and center their experiences. We believe all students have a right to safer campuses. We recognize that sexualized violence and rape culture affect people profoundly and differently. We believe in low threshold access to services for survivors of sexualized violence. We respect survivors' choices pertaining to their lives, bodies, and personhood. We believe that sexual and relationship education taught from a sex-positive, inclusive, intersectional, and collaborative framework is fundamental to changing the culture on campus to a consent culture. We aim to combat all forms of sexualized violence, abuse, inequality, and injustice using an anti-oppressive, intersectional, feminist lens. Mandate?
I'm just showing it on the screen.
Oh, okay. I will move to the side so you can read. So the three big categories are support, education, and advocacy. And in putting this vision, mission, mandate together, we had to answer, and we are legally responsible to answer the levy question that is on record. So in In the mandate under support, the Survivor Support Center will be open to Dalhousie students of all genders and experiences of sexualized violence, whether recent or historic. The Survivor Support Center will help students and members of the Dalhousie community navigate systems specific to this institution and the community as requested. The Survivor Support Center aims to empower survivors in their choices. The Survivor Support Center will implement and maintain a sexual assault and harassment phone line, providing confidential, active listening, information and systems navigation for survivors and those affected by sexualized violence. The Survivor Support Center engages a peer-to-peer support model. The Survivor Support Center aims to build capacity and work in collaboration with existing and valuable services on campus and in the community rather than in competition with them. And under education, the Survivor Support Center aims to provide consistent and sustainable support, training, and resources for our volunteers. The Survivor Support Center aims to create programming, workshops, resources, campaigns, and services to be a model and a leader for other student unions and post-secondary administrations. And under advocacy, the Survivor Support Center will advocate for safer campuses, lobbying university administration and government on issues of sexualized violence. And because we live in the modern age, develop a few taglines that can be used in social media. We believe the survivors, Survivor Support Center, and support education and advocacy, Survivor Support Center.
Thank you, Shannon. Councilors can ask questions to Shannon if they would like. Amina moved this motion. Before we get to debate on it, do we have a second? Yazin, excellent. I'll open up debate. Amina, did you want to speak to this first? Amina?
Sure. I want to speak in favor of this motion. The Survivor Support Center has been doing incredible work all year. I've had the pleasure of working fairly closely with Shannon and to see the shift that's slowly but surely happening on campus, to see volunteer training, the partnerships that we've been able to build has been really inspiring, and I think this will be a step forward in solidifying the direction of the Survivor Support Center, so I really do encourage councilors to vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Amina. Yazin, if you want to speak to this, the opportunity to. Does anybody else want to speak to this motion? Have any questions for Shannon? Anything like that? Kate or Jim?
I just have a question. So if this if this didn't exist, it doesn't exist. So was there any, what were you operating off of for this year? With like, so you built this incredible piece from obviously what you've gathered, but like working with this year, were you just working off the levy question?
I was working off the levy question, what was on the platform, and what had been put on the website. That was the information that I was given, so that's what I was working on.
That must have been incredibly difficult, I think, because also just even talking to folks without like a vision statement or a mission statement, like that's hard. So I'm very excited to have this formally pass, especially to the incredible work that you do, and as well as to really encourage students and lay it out like what the expectation is, what the resource is, and what they can expect, and hopefully I think this lays out a really incredible environment, whether you or somebody else is a part of it, which is something, yeah. So I'm just extremely happy that this is coming to council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Alexius.
I'm also extremely excited about this and really appreciative of all of Shannon's stuff because you're amazing. We did have the internal document that was used previously was this roadmap, like a sexual support roadmap, that outlined kind of the goals and targets throughout like the next couple of years for the center. But obviously that's not like accessible or like friendly to students really, and like they don't care about the like goals of it as much as just what they can get out of it. So I think that this is really needed and really well put together and really well done, and I think it's just going to make the center more accessible and friendly to students who need it. So
my apologies for forgetting to say
no,
I was operating
don't
off
worry
the
about it. I
roadmap
just
as well
wanted
too.
to
It reflected what was online, so yes,
Yeah.
I've been operating off of this roadmap, but it was reflected online as well too. And so the roadmap is where I've already done a report on it already. So I report quarterly on it, so yes.
I also think the language.
Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
I also think the language that's used is it's just like not polarizing either. Like I think when we talk about a lot of this or like social justice issues, folks like that's their first concern. They don't identify with like any policy or anything written, and I think this is really accessible to like any type of student because and I think that's what it's meant to be. There's no like there's no specific person that is a survivor, right? So like I think that this displays that. So
excellent. That's what we want. We want everyone to see themselves in it, so that we can help anyone who requires it and requests it.
Cameron, go ahead.
I was just wondering, how can it be accessed by students in Truro? How can they have that be approached?
So the Survivor Support Center in Truro, they can call the office and they can speak to me. They also have access to the phone line as well too. And right now the phone line, we have two phones. The phone rings and it goes to the volunteers, and if they aren't able to pick up, I pick up. And I'm the backup of the phone line 7 days a week, so it goes, this is it right here, it goes with me. And it's from 12 noon to 12 a.m. So you have 12 hours, so they can always access. Technically, you could access me 7 days a week via either the office and or through the phone line. So that in giving them that opportunity, I'm happy to have conversations with the students at Truro as well too, if they have questions in terms of systems navigation. We don't necessarily want to go through the other systems as well too. And what we do is we lay out options, and then they are empowered to choose what they want to do and how they respond to it. So.
Katie Georgia.
I also want to utilize this opportunity, you coming to council, because like I really like this. Just kind of going off of Cameron's question, how like feasible do you think it would be to have like a survivor support center or like a service of it, like at different campuses? Like, what do you think that would require? Like, I know it can't happen in your capacity, in the office's capacity, because I know of like financial barriers, but like, how might you see it, or like ideally, like how would you see it? Because I think like when we've had this conversation about like it's very, very upsetting to see like how students, especially at agriculture, can't access something that like is so incredibly important, and like it sucks like that they can't have the person, like yes, the phone, but how ideally do you think it would go?
We will need more money.
Okay.
So if we have more money and space, we can set up in other locations. So strategies for accessing more funds, whether we run student levy that's higher to access more funds, or we look at different areas where we can access funding without losing our autonomy. And that is very key. You know, where are we going to perhaps ask the university with an MOU, so that we can still work as the union, and but it will require funds.
Okay.
But we started with an office, which is now half administration. My sofa's set up. We'll have a center, so it doesn't really take much space. And as we have the phone line as well too, and having somebody who is there and accessible to them, and low barrier access is something I'm very passionate about, which means anonymity. The phone line is anonymous. We don't know who you are. You can call. You don't have to give your name. You just need to get the story out. So that's really an issue about accessibility, is having anonymity as well, confidentiality, and the fact that if it's a drop-in, students can just drop in and get an appointment, just come.
Do you have a follow-up to that, Katie?
Yeah. Chair, are we able to ask for presentations from the DSU offices, perhaps like in the coming month or two before the end of the semester? Because I would really, honestly, like I have a lot more questions, and I think like this, and I think I would have a lot more questions for other offices, and especially when it's regarding like as council, how we can do it within our constituents and how we can bring it to the students to talk about these things. Because unless we go to the center, like. So I was wondering if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if council wants to, I can be in contact with Shannon about getting sort of a presentation on what the Survivor Support Center has been up to. You want to get with that?
Absolutely, I have presentations all ready to go, and I can tailor it to meet your needs if you want. If you want to know exactly what I've been doing this year, I can break it all down. If you want to look at my roadmap, I can tell you where we've been checking things off, and absolutely. So
yeah, or perhaps even a workshop, if not a presentation, like for even our council. Like I think like it's a really great way to engage with just like our representatives, but as well as like they can take that back as a tool.
I'm happy to do whatever you'd like in terms of the presentation and tailor it to your needs. Just let me know. That's
Great. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
we can work together.
Okay, thank you.
all right. Thank you.
I just have
Cameron.
a follow-up question.
Yes.
I was just thinking, if you did have access to more funds, would you be willing to do like a drop-in service, like, would you be willing to come to the campus in Truro, like once a month or something? Like in our like our success center in the health section, would you be willing to come have a drop-in service there?
Absolutely. We will move some funds in the budget. So yes,
Awesome. That'd be great.
and we'll build it into the budget for next time. So
Yeah, I can see.
Sure, yeah, if you want to answer this.
Just very briefly, this is the first year that it's been going on, and a lot of costs were just put into just like office supplies, but like I think next year we'll free up some space in the budget to do some more.
absolutely.
Thanks, Chantel and Cameron. Any other debate or questions on this motion, or are councillors ready for the question? So, all in favor of approving the Survivor Sports Center mission, vision, mandate, and taglines as circulated, raise your hand or otherwise indicate. All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Moving along, we have be it resolved that a special general meeting be called for March 29th, 2018 at 6 o'clock to consider the following resolution. This was moved by Amina. Do I have a second for this motion? Yazin. Excellent. Amina, did you want to speak to calling a general meeting?
We passed our bylaw amendment at the last council meeting, and in order for the amendments to be adopted, they need to be passed at a general meeting. And so according to our bylaws, we have 21 days before we need to put notice to the membership. And the 29th would be 21 days from today.
Thanks, Amina. Yazin, did you want to speak to this at all? Does anybody else want to speak to calling a general meeting? Are councillors ready for the question? I believe this is a special resolution as per the bylaws, so it requires 2/3 majority. All in favor of calling a special general meeting to consider the bylaw amendments, raise your hand or otherwise indicate.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. See you all on March 29th. I'll be there. We have no old business. Moving on to executive business. Amina, did you have anything that you wanted to report?
I will be circulating a written report later this evening. So if folks have any questions on the report that will be circulated, please feel free to reach out.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Amina? We'll move along then to Alex Hughes. Alex?
I just emailed you all my report that highlight reel. Actually, I've kind of gone over the highlight reel because the last couple weeks have been kind of consumed by the site review committee stuff and the accessibility nursery stuff, which I go into detail more on a report. The E&A office has kind of come to like a pause for a moment just because Aaron, who's the coordinator, is running the election, so he can't be working right now, and Masuma, who's kind of my us two kind of like are overseeing that right now, is also in the election. So I had 2 anti-O sessions booked, one for March 13th and one next month, but I think that one will have, the March one will probably have to be canceled just because both of them are unavailable, which is unfortunate. Yeah. Communications regularly scheduled, pretty busy right now with the elections. And then programming events. I have a random event this Friday that I've been working on with South House, Sunscat, and Venus Envy. It's a screening of an episode of Black Mirror, the one happy episode called San Junipero, at the art bar, and there's gonna be snacks and like fun photo booth and decorations and a guided discussion afterwards. And basically it's just kind of like talking about like queer relationships and like the future and time and space and cool things like that. So please come out and tell all your constituents. It's gonna be really fun. That's all.
Thank you, Alex. Does anybody have any questions for Alex?
I found the first society also. It was the Arabic Society.
The Arabic Society. First alphabetically. Are they the first alphabetically?
Yes, maybe. Probably not.
I don't think so. There's probably.
Any other questions for Alex? Move along then to Chantal. Chantal.
I'll be circulating my report later tonight. There was just some confusion about if I was allowed to attend this meeting, but it will be circulated later tonight.
Anybody have any questions for Chantal? Massima isn't here. Corey.
So my report was circulated. Just a couple of quick things. TEDx is this weekend on Sunday at 2 o'clock, right in the McGinnis room. Tickets are on sale up until day of. There's a fantastic lineup of speakers, meals included, coffee, cookies, snacks, all that good stuff. It'll be a great day. The week after that is Mental Health Awareness Week. So we got a couple of events going on. A free concert with Craig Cardiff down in the Tea Room on the Thursday. Sure to check that out. That's free to all Dallas students. St. Patrick's Day in the Greywood next weekend from 12 to 7. Free all, or not free all day breakfast. That would be amazing. Just all day breakfast. But a lot of free swag going on and a couple great bands. Afterwards or after that, and Dallas Got Talent as well the following week. So if you know any talented students, get them to fill out the audition form on the DSU website.
Thanks, Corey. Any questions for Corey? We'll move along then to notices of motion. I've received 2. Yasmin, do you want to introduce yours?
I'm noticing a motion for DSU to support the York, the QP 3903 and 2424 in Carleton and in York, who are on strike for better working conditions and for better conditions for their students. Just a statement of support.
Yasmin, Katie, did you have a question about this?
Sorry, is that for the TAs? Like, is that
TAs,
including the, okay.
Which includes graduate students.
Oh, okay, cool.
Just for the record, I'm going to read it out because it says that we should in the bylaws. Whereas the Dalhousie Student Union solidarity with other student organizations and faculty unions helps create and maintain relationships needed to effectively advance student causes provincially and federally. Be it resolved that the Dalhousie Student Union expresses support for the graduate assistants, teaching assistants, and contract faculty at York University, represented by the Canadian Union of Public Employees Local 3903, who are on strike demanding greater job security for contract faculty, more stable funding for graduate students' research, improved equity and accessibility, better child care services on campus, and a support fund for survivors of sexual violence on campus. Be it further resolved that the Dalhousie Student Union express support for the administrative, technical, and library workers at Carleton University, represented by the Canadian Union of Public Employees Local 2424, who are on strike demanding continued pension security. So, that will come up at the next meeting. The other notice of motion I have received is submitted by Alex Hughes. One moment. You have 2 more notices of motion. Well, we can do. Actually, I'm going to do Alex's first because it was submitted in advance, and this is the order that they come up on the agenda. Alex Hughes' motion.
Explain it, or like.
Yeah, you can speak to it just very briefly and sort of explaining why it's coming.
Yeah. So the society policy says that if a society breaks society policy, there are some grounds that SRC has the jurisdiction to punish the society on, and then there are other grounds that it has to come to council. So both, like, it kind of overlaps because Society Review Committee does have some grounds, but we are asking for something that's like out of our bounds. So that's why it's coming to council, and I will be like circulating a list of supporting documents and like a statement of reasons later on. And yeah.
Thanks, Alex. So the motion, whereas the Society Review Committee has been made aware that the Halifax Street Council, the DSU Ratified Society, has breached the DSU Society Policy, the DSU Equity Policy, as well as the terms of the DSU Meetings and Event Management Contract, be it resolved that first, as advised to Council by the Society Review Committee, Halifax Street Council's societal booking privileges will be revoked, including the ability to book space in the sub, as well as other rentable DSU assets like the popcorn machine, snow cone machine, and barbecue, and will not be granted event ID numbers to book space elsewhere on campus effective immediately until winter semester 2019. 2, Halifax Street Council provide apology letters to the University Club bartending staff who experienced verbal harassment at a Halifax Street Council event, namely Samantha Farnham, Francis Parker, and Leslie Palahimo, and Julie Charbonneau, no later than March 31st, 2018. So that too will come up at the next council meeting. Katie, George, did you have a question on that?
Council's been questioned, council specifically has been questioned about like inviting folks, like this came up with Pride, this came up with like, I don't know, other individuals and organizations. Can it be kind of known that the chair will be able to reach out to this specific society to ensure that they're aware and that they have the proper tools to talk about it, to be what have you?
Yep.
Just I don't want to run into like the same problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was talking with Alex about this a little bit beforehand, and she's advised me that she has reached out to Greek Council, let them know that this will be considered on March 21st, and also as chair, I'm going to recognize them in order to give them an opportunity to sort of contribute to the debate.
We're meeting with them this Friday to explain, and then they're going to come defend themselves as well.
All right. Thank you. That's my motion.
Other notices of motion, Yazid.
From the bylaw and policy review committee, I'm noticing amendments to the hiring policy and accommodation policy. I don't have the text, but hopefully you'll have it by the end of the day. You can, have the final copy, but you can look that up.
All right, so the hiring policy, and that just like be resolved that the hiring policy
adopted as circulated for both.
For hiring policy, and what was the other policy?
Accommodations policy, which is I think a new policy that we're introducing.
Yeah. So yeah, be it resolved that amendments to the hiring policy are accepted as circulated, and be it resolved that the accommodations policy is adopted as circulated. Any other notices of motion? All right, then.
Point of information. For the AGM, is there any to notice other than that motion? Or does the president have to or is the fact that council has passed?
So there is an obligation to provide notice to students, and I believe Amina and Paul, our communications director, have been working together to make sure that we fulfill the bylaw requirements of that before 6 o'clock tomorrow night, because that meeting does require 3 weeks of notice. But that's, on people's radar, and it'll be given. Moving on then to announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Cameron.
It's not really an announcement, I just didn't know where to interject. I'd like to especially thank Katie and Masuma for coming to campus in Truro on Monday. We had some great chats, and we were really excited to have some candidates up on our campus. Our DSU president Jeremy said he was going to email it out, but he just wanted me to bring it up tonight at council. That the candidates that are coming up to campus on the Saturday, we just want to confirm where they booked on campus and what time. So I don't know if anyone, maybe Katie could speak more on it.
No one from the election committee is here. They sent us, there's been minimal communication between what's happening this weekend.
I speak to that.
Oh,
Sure,
you
do? Do you want to speak to it?
Oh no, all I've just been saying is the candidates haven't even confirmed, so, but I mean, if you have the specific answer, definitely.
Amina, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, and just to clarify the question was the timing.
Yep, and if you guys have booked the Riverview Room or the Aggie Lounge in Jenkins Hall, for students to come and meet with you.
Did you hear that, Amina?
I did. I'm not sure what the location is, but I do know that the timing was from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. was the intention.
Okay.
And I know this through trying to book drivers.
Okay.
We can give you the direct email for Caitlin in the CRO. She should, I'm surprised that wasn't communicated, but totally understandable, and I think
that would be great.
Yeah.
Our second request too was that for all the candidates, we're hoping to have a written copy and answers if we're coming to campus for all the candidates, even if they're not coming. Our first question is what are your plans for?
Sorry, Cameron, just to interject. Where not even most, barely any of the candidates are here, would it be better to sort of circulate those questions through the elections committee?
I didn't know where to go, and I was going to be here in person, so Jerry wanted me to make sure that was in person to everyone in council.
That's very fair. But if you want to check with me and Katie,
I'll give you our questions that we want answered.
Okay, perfect.
I don't think that announcement is necessarily the best place for this. If we want candidates to know what the questions are. Katie, do you want to speak to this? I think this comes from like a feeling of frustration of not being heard, honestly. And I think as council, we should be able to hear it, and it should be on the record, because if the EC, which is a subset of this council, has not listened to a councillor and to the societies that are a part of it, I think that's like also our fault as well. So I think it is completely fine to have that on the record, and for the AC, if anywhere else, to say it at council, so folks watching can follow up. So I don't know. I think I'd like to give this space for someone to speak, but it's obviously the chair's discretion.
Yeah, it was just about like sort of the specifics of enumerating the questions.
It was just two quick questions.
Sure. What were they?
Okay. We want just like 100 words or less, just quick kind of answers for our students to hear, and for us to post. So what are their plans for contributing to the AC student life next year? And the second part would be how will they be held accountable to commit to those plans? It was great. We were very excited to have Katie and Masuma up, but we know in the past with candidates that there's been a bit of disconnect, and they saying what they want to do but not following up with it. So we want to make sure that we have some information about what the candidates plan to do to incorporate us and stay connected and communicate with us.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you.
Any other announcements? Chantal?
There is a form on the DSU website. If you just search up budget feedback form, where you folks can fill out information. I've been informed that there's a small discrepancy in the two documents that are up there, but that will be fixed in the next couple of days. But we'll be taking them up until March 23rd. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Corey?
So there was a back consultation in this room just prior to council. There were 3 students here, myself, Chantal, and Isaac Greenberg, which is so great because this is the Dalhousie's budget for the next year. They're hosting 2 more consultations over the next 2 days. They're really looking for student feedback. I'm just pulling up the information in regards to the budget. It's pretty accessible. They've done a great job of presenting it. So if you're around Sexton tomorrow, they're doing one at 12 noon in B311 B building, and then another one at 5 p.m. In room 1111 in Campbell. And then a final one on March 13th at 4 p.m. in the Riverview Room at Agricultural Campus. I do encourage constituents to go to that.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Corey. Any other announcements? Then, the only other announcement is that the next meeting of this council is March 21st. It's my mother's birthday. Any presents, you can submit them to me, and I will pass them along to Gail Abraham. G-A-I-L. G-A-I-L. No. Having exhausted the agenda of the meeting, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, guys.
So I just messaged Caitlin.